Hello and welcome back, future scientists. I'm Mr. K with Mississippi Public Broadcasting, and I have another lesson ready for y'all today. So we're actually going to change it up a little bit. We've been talking about cellular respiration and animals. Today we're going to switch it up and talk about plants a little bit. And this is going to be really important because we're going to get into photosynthesis here later down the line, and I just kind of want to introduce plants and some of their anatomy so that when we get to the photosynthesis part, we kind of know what we're talking about a little bit. So sit in your chairs, hang back, hang in there with me, and we'll go ahead and get the ball rolling on this. So we're talking about plants today. First of all, very important, I wanted to discuss photosynthesis with you. Here's what's going on in photosynthesis. We take carbon dioxide and water plus a little bit of sunlight, and we're going to convert that into glucose and oxygen. Here's the formula for it down here in the bottom. And what I really want to point out is that this is just cellular respiration in the opposite direction. We're going to talk about this in a lot of detail, but photosynthesis and cellular respiration is the same process in reverse. When you are living your life, you breathe in oxygen and you eat glucose, and you use that to make all the energy for your body. Plants are doing this kind of in the opposite direction. They're breathing in carbon dioxide, they're taking in water, and they're producing sugar and oxygen. And then you're going to take that sugar and oxygen and do cellular respiration. So photosynthesis and cellular respiration are like different sides of the same coin. So when it comes to learning the equations for these, I've mentioned that you're going to have to know the equations. Just know that they're going to be the same, just with the reactants and the products flipped. So let's kind of look at this equation real quick and kind of talk through it, and we'll compare it to cellular respiration here in just a second. So yeah, plants take in carbon dioxide. They don't really breathe it in, they don't have lungs, but they are taking it into their body. They're also going to take in water. Where's the water coming from? Well, that's coming from the ground and their roots, right? Their whole goal here is to produce sugar. That's what they need. They need sugar. They need something to eat. The only thing they can really eat is sugar. So they're really trying to make sugar, and then just a byproduct, they're not even trying to make it. It's just kind of a happy coincidence for us. Part of this whole process is that they make oxygen, and oxygen is super important for us, but the plants aren't doing it for our benefit. It's just a byproduct. So notice how sugar and oxygen are over here on the right, but when we do cellular respiration, we just take these two and they're on the left, and these two are on the other side. So if I were just to flip those, if I just flip this arrow the other way, it's cellular respiration going like this and photosynthesis going like this. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in a lot more detail in a later unit. I just kind of wanted to get your mind kind of turning on that, is that they are very, very similar. They're just going in opposite directions. So let's talk about plants and their anatomy and some important stuff inside of plants that you need to know. So first of all, plant cells have a very important organelle that animal cells do not have. It's called a chloroplast. So photosynthesis occurs inside these organelles that are called chloroplasts. Chloroplasts contain sac-like photosynthetic membranes known as thylakoids. So these chloroplasts, they kind of look like little green footballs. Inside the football is a pigment that's very important called chlorophyll, and that's what kind of gives them their green color. That chlorophyll is also what can absorb the sunlight and use it as energy, okay? So we'll talk about the chloroplast in a lot more detail, but you'll notice that there's a lot of different parts of that chloroplast on this slide, okay? So to leave chloroplast and plants a little bit, I wanted to talk about light. Light energy is very important for photosynthesis. It's how we're making that glucose. So first of all, visible light, what you can see is a small part of a much larger spectrum known as the electromagnetic spectrum, okay? Most waves are on this scale in some way. You have microwaves, radio waves, X-rays, gamma rays. All of that stuff is on this electromagnetic spectrum. And just a very, very small part of this spectrum, your eyes have developed to be able to see. And we call that visible light. Now, all of this light, you'll see a lot of different colors here, right? This is like all the colors of the rainbow. Okay, well, the reason that light has different colors is just that the wavelengths are at different different lengths. Really long waves appear more red. You'll see that these are the long waves down here. You see how the waves are longer. So the longest wavelengths are always red, and then the shortest wavelengths are always blue and purple, okay? And this is why if you ever have seen a rainbow before, it's not like the colors are random in a rainbow, right? They're always the same category or organization of colors. What I like to remember is just Roy G. Biv. You may have heard that before. Those are the colors in the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, violet, Roy G. Biv. That's how I kind of remember them. Well, the reason that the red is always on top is that its wavelength is the longest. And the reason the blues and the purple are always at the bottom of the rainbow is that their wavelengths are the shortest, okay? So the reason that this is important, again, is that these plants use chlorophyll to absorb energy in sunlight to make glucose out of it, okay? The absorption spectrum of chlorophyll, there's a couple different types of chlorophyll. The most important one is called chlorophyll A. Chlorophyll A is primarily, it absorbs energy in the blue and red spectrum. Okay, the action spectrum of photosynthesis closely matches the absorption spectrum of chlorophyll A, but not exactly, and we'll talk about that in just a second. There's a lot of different types of chlorophyll inside of chloroplasts other than just chlorophyll A. So inside of plants, there are these things called pigments, and pigments are the things that give plants their color. Okay, but the pigments can also capture the energy from the sun's light, and we can use that to do photosynthesis. The primary pigment in plants is called chlorophyll, and there's a couple of different types of chlorophyll. You have chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, you have different types of pigments called carotenoids, and this produces the wide range of colors that we see in plants. Okay, so depending on what type of chlorophyll or what type of pigment is inside of that plant, it's going to be absorbing and reflecting lights in different amount, and that's what gives plants their color. So like way over here, these plants, these leaves on the right that look really, really green, they're absorbing a lot of reds and blues and then reflecting green, and that's mostly what we're seeing. While these leaves over here that are more red and orange, they're probably absorbing a lot of green light and blue light and then reflecting the orange and red, and that's why they appear that color to us. So there are accessory pigments. Chlorophyll A is the green one, that's the most common one, but there are other pigments as well, such as chlorophyll B and carotenoids. Carotenoids are orange, and there's a lot of carotenoids in like carrots and sweet potatoes, and that's why they look orange. Okay, these different pigments absorb light at different wavelengths, and this helps to extend the absorption range. If you have a lot of these different pigments, you can get more out of the light that you're absorbing. They also help to transfer some of the energy to chlorophyll A. They're also going to protect cells from harmful byproducts. Okay, so chlorophyll A is the primary photosynthetic pigment that drives photosynthesis, and then some accessory pigments absorb at different wavelengths, which extend the range of light useful for photosynthesis. So we're mostly using that chlorophyll A, but we have some backups just in case chlorophyll A we're not getting enough out of it. That's why we're going to have some of those leaves look like red and orange, because they have different pigments in them and not the chlorophyll A. So why do plants appear green then? It's because of that chlorophyll A. Okay, what's happening is that chlorophyll A, that's the pigment that's inside most of the leaves. It's going to absorb everything on the spectrum other than green. So it's going to absorb a lot of reds and blues, and then it reflects the green away. And when it reflects the green, that's what comes into our eyes, and so we see those leaves as being green. Okay, so you can see here that these are plant cells, and inside of them you can see those chloroplasts and the pigments inside of them. That's why those plants are appearing green, is because of that chlorophyll. Okay, and we're going to talk about the different parts of this chloroplast here in just a moment. Okay, so let's just real quick to hammer in that information about the pigments. The leaves reflect green light, which is why plants appear green, and plants also contain red and orange pigments, and they absorb absorb light at different wavelengths, and that's why some plants have different colors other than green. Okay, so photosynthesis in chloroplasts, what's really going on here? Well, in most plants, photosynthesis primarily occurs in leaves within the chloroplast. A chloroplast contains, so inside a chloroplast, remember that's an organelle. Inside the chloroplast, you have a fluid-filled space. That's called the stroma. You'll have these little pancake-looking things called thylakoids. Okay, so one pancake-looking thing is called a thylakoid, and then a stack of pancakes, a stack of thylakoids is called a grana. Okay, the thylakoids is where the chlorophyll is, and then chlorophyll is the green pigment that captures light for photosynthesis. So if this isn't making sense, if this is confusing, just hang in there with me. I got a worksheet we're going to do with this here towards the end of the class. So just hang in there with me now and I'll try to clear things up in just a second. So let's look at this picture and figure out what's going on. So this is a chloroplast and there's a couple different parts that I need you to know about this. So first of all, let's start up here on the top left, okay? So chloroplasts, they have multiple membranes, okay? So we have an outer membrane and an inner membrane and then an intermembrane space. So this kind of light green, this is in between the outer and inner membrane. It's just kind of an open area, okay? So then let's take a closer look inside of the chloroplast. So let's talk about these things called thylakoids, okay? A thylakoid, this is where you can find the chlorophyll. To me, they look like little pancakes. So each little green oval inside of the chloroplast is called a thylakoid. A stack of thylakoids, so if I get 2 or 3 of them together, that's called a granum. Okay, so a stack of thylakoids is called a granum, and that's a stack of thylakoids. Okay, inside the thylakoids is an open area. It's like a hollow area. It's called a lumen, but the lumen is not actually hollow. This is where the chlorophyll is. So the chlorophyll is inside the thylakoid. The thylakoid is part of a granum. The granum is inside the whole chloroplast. And then out beyond the thylakoids and granum is this open area, and that's called the stroma. It's an aqueous fluid. So this is just kind of filled with a fluid here, okay? Great, so let's keep this going. I'll talk about chloroplasts in a little bit more detail, and then we'll go through and do a little worksheet so that you can remember all those different parts of a chloroplast. Okay, so let's talk about the chloroplast structure. Again, chloroplasts, they're green. They kind of have a football shape to them. They've got a double membrane, okay? Inside of the inner membrane is a fluid-filled space. That's called the stroma, okay? Inside the open inner membrane are these little ovals. These little ovals are called thylakoids. This is where the chlorophyll can be found. And then if you stack a couple of those thylakoids on top of each other, that's called a granum. Inside each thylakoid is an open area called the lumen, and inside the lumen, that is where you'll find the chlorophyll, which again, there can be a couple different types, but mostly chlorophyll A, which is the green one, okay? So to talk about chloroplasts in a little bit more detail, the pigments are in the thylakoid membranes. Remember, that can be chlorophyll A, B, carotenoid, okay? And then the fluid portion outside of the thylakoid is known as the stroma. And the reason we need to know all the different parts of the chloroplast is that it plays an important role when we start talking about photosynthesis next time. Okay, last little thing about plants that you need to know about today. They have an opening, so imagine on the bottom of each leaf, there's all of these really small openings that you can't see. Those little openings are called a stomata. The stomata is an opening through which plants exchange gases, okay? It's almost like your mouth or your nose. You're taking in oxygen, you're expelling carbon dioxide. Plants have to do that too, but kind of in the opposite order. They're bringing in carbon dioxide and pushing out oxygen, and they do that gas exchange through these small openings on, under the leaves. There's a lot of them that you can't see, and those little openings are called stomatas, okay? So why do plants need both chloroplasts and mitochondria? So the chloroplasts are used to convert energy from the sun into glucose, but then the mitochondria, we take that glucose and break it down using cellular respiration to make ATP. So plant cells have both. They have both chloroplast and mitochondria, and they need both. The chloroplast makes the glucose, and the mitochondria breaks the glucose down into ATP, which is what they need. Okay, y'all, great job. Thanks for hanging in there with me. We're going to label the parts of a chloroplast together because it can be a little confusing. Teacher, go ahead and pass out those worksheets to everybody. Y'all take maybe 5 or 10 minutes, look at it over some time by yourself, and then when you're ready, come back to me and I'll do it up here on the board with y'all, and that way we're all on the same page. So go ahead and pass those out, and when you're ready, unpause the video, come back, and I'll review it with y'all. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and dive right into this. So I've got 10 questions, 10 things we need to know about chloroplasts. I got a little word box down there. Let's see what y'all came up with. This picture here was mostly just to kind of help you fill in the blanks there. So let's see what y'all came up with. Number 1 says, a stack of thylakoids in a chloroplast. What should we put for that? Well, I see that a granum is circling a couple of different thylakoids, and it says a stack of thylakoids. So number 1 should be granum. Great. Number 2, the open space inside the inner membrane, which is filled with fluid. What is that called? That's called the stroma. Stroma. Great, let's keep it going. Number 3, the open space inside the thylakoids. So each of these is a thylakoid. You can see that inside the thylakoid is an opening called the lumen. So number 3 should be lumen. And actually you'll see lumen come up a lot. Lumen is just an opening of anything. Okay, the opening of your blood vessels is called a lumen. So lumen just means an open space with anything. Okay, number 4, it says a granum is made up of several of these. So here's a granum. A granum is made up of several repeating structures. Those repeating structures are called thylakoids. So each of those little circles there is called a thylakoid. Great job, y'all. Let's keep it going. Number 5, the green pigment in plants. What is that green pigment called? Well, you might remember from these are called, the green pigments is called chlorophyll, right? Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll. Great job, let's keep it going. All right, so number 6 says an organism that makes its own food. What do we call that? There's a couple different names. I think what we should use here though in the word box at the bottom is a word called autotroph. That's what I like to use, autotroph. But producer could kind of work here too, okay? Let's keep it going. Number 7, what is the conversion of light energy into sugar? So what starts off as light and makes sugar? That's that process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. Y'all are doing great. We just got a couple left. So number 8, the gas that is the reactant for photosynthesis. So reactant. Is a reactant what we put into it or what we're getting out of it? A reactant is what we put into it. We're putting in carbon dioxide. And I'm just going to write that as CO2. Okay, CO2 is carbon dioxide. And that's what we're putting into photosynthesis. Number 9 is asking the gas that is the product of photosynthesis. Product means what are we getting out of it? So we put in carbon dioxide, what do we get out of it? We get out oxygen. And so I'm just going to abbreviate that as O2. That's the type of oxygen that we breathe. Great, let's check out that last one, y'all. So number 10 says the overall product of photosynthesis needed by plants. So what we're really trying to make here at the end of the day, the only thing the plants care about is glucose. They don't care about making oxygen for us. They just kind of do it because it's a byproduct. They want the glucose. That's really important for them. So I wanted to make sure I reviewed those with y'all because this stuff can definitely be kind of confusing. Your teacher has some other work for you to do, so make sure to give that your best effort, and I hope everybody has a great day.